Welcome to Into Longjing River, exploring a century of Hakka cultural stories. This course will take you on a visit to Longjing River, exploring a century-old Hakka culture. Longjing River, flowing through the Neipu and Zhutian township in Pingtung, is known as the Mother River. This river provided a crucial water source for the early Hakka settlers, enabling them to establish a civilization passed down through generations on this fertile land. The course will offer an in-depth cultural tour through 3 illustrated storybooks: Lullaby of Mother River, The Longjing River, The Guardian of Villages, Gung, and Respecting the Pages of Life, the Respect Words Pavilion. In addition to guiding you through the Longjing River and exploring the century-old Hakka culture through videos and illustrated storybooks, I have also designed 3 multiple-choice questions to make sure you fully understand the video content. Don't worry, all the answers are hidden in the video waiting for you to explore. Moreover, to help you apply what you've learned, I've prepared a short answer question at the end of the lesson so you can review and consolidate today's knowledge. Finally, there's a carefully designed post-class quiz, so don't forget to take it and see if you've fully understood the course content. After completing this course, you will have a deeper understanding of the Longjing River in Pingtung Hakka culture and the cultural landmarks along the way. You will also have a better grasp of the related vocabulary taught in the videos. This learning experience will not only enhance your English skills, but also significantly deepen your knowledge of Taiwan. These learning outcomes will be reflected not just in your knowledge, but also in your confidence and communication abilities. For example, through this learning experience, when you encounter similar situations to those in the videos during future travels, you'll be able to engage more confidently in in-depth conversations and express your views more concretely. Whether you have a strong interest in culture and history or are new to this field, this course will provide you with a solid foundation enabling you to further research and explore this fascinating domain. We hope you can apply the knowledge and skills you've gained to everyday scenarios, creating more opportunities and rewards for your personal growth. Hearing about this course content and the learning outcomes, aren't you excited? Without further ado, let's get started. In the first illustrated storybook, Through the Footsteps of the Main Characters, Ah Chung and Granduncle Alien, you will be introduced to Longjing River and the stories that took place along its shores. From the upstream springs and the bamboo forest of Zhutujiao to the Mazu Temple, the Gung Temple, and the big ditch where Granduncle used to swim and catch fish as a child. You will explore the tales along the shores of Longjing River. Before announcing the questions, to ensure you don't become too immersed in the beautiful illustrated storybooks and forget to pay attention to the key points in the video, I have specially marked the video with attention prompts to remind you when important information appears. Question 1. Which of the following descriptions and stories about Longjing River mentioned in the video is incorrect? A. For Neipu Township and Zhutian Township, the Longjing River plays an important role in river irrigation and flood drainage. B. Houses designed with swallowtails indicate that a significant event has occurred in the family, and someone has been arrested and imprisoned. C. People used to burn written papers in the Respect Words Pavilion, symbolizing their ancestors' respect for the written word. D. People used to use the stone weir fishing technique to catch fish in the river. Got the question? Remember to pay attention to the attention prompts in the video. Let's play the video now. 3, 2, 1.
Lullaby of Mother River. The Longjing River. The Longjing River, one of the major tributaries of the Donggeng River, flows through Neipu Township and Zhutian Township. As the mother river of this area, it plays an essential role in irrigation and flood diversion. Water was inseparable from daily use and farming in the early Hakka settlements. For peace of mind and spiritual comfort, a religious belief in land gods sprouted on the banks of the Longjing River. The Longjing River propelled not only the local development, but also gave birth to various riverfront features such as bridges, archways, and the unique Hakka belief of Gung, which serves as evidence of human-nature interactions and social developments. Chung was on summer vacation, and he came to Longjing River every afternoon to watch people fishing. He finds it very interesting and wanted to learn how to fish. One day, he came to Longjing River as usual and found his granduncle, Alim, had already caught much big fish. Driven by curiosity, Chung asked granduncle Alim,
"What kind of fish did you catch? Are they good to eat? Where did they come from?"
Numerous questions diverted granduncle Alim's attention from fishing. So granduncle Alim decided to take Chung on a trip for insight into the Longjing River. On their way, granduncle Alim could tell him those unforgettable stories that occurred alongside the Longjing River in his childhood. First, they arrived at Phúc Chen Hall at the upper reaches of the Longjing River. Granduncle Alim told Chung,
"Long time ago, the militia soldiers were trained here to protect their village. There was a steady flow of water that emerged with bubbles from the ground. The gushing underground water was known as artesian wells."
Next, they come to granduncle Alim's secret base, Chituchio, a former Ma bamboo forest, where granduncle Alim used to collect river snails and clams when he was still a child. Chung looked around curiously and imagined what it used to be like. Granduncle Alim and Chung went against the Longjing River and reached the Mazu Temple. Granduncle Alim told Chung that this was the place where the militia generals and soldiers gathered and pledged allegiance before the uprisings were launched. The square in front of Mazu Temple was usually bustling and overflowing with vendors selling their products. In front of the Mazu Temple, numerous prosperous shops on Yangjiyuan and Saru streets called on villagers to shop for whatever they needed. Sometimes they simply came for some delicious Hakka flat noodles, and spent their free time in a movie theater. Chung was so attracted by the stories about the past. Then granduncle Alim and Chung went to Li's ancestral hall, which was built near the bend of the river, to visit his elementary school classmate. People in the village called him Bajiao Pond Bag Gung. Chung saw that this Bajiao Pond Bag Gung lived in a very special house with a fork-like corner on the roof, and Bajiao Pond Bag Gung told Chung that it was a swallowtail, which means that this prominent family had raised many people with great minds. They walked and walked, and finally, they came to a stream called Dagu, in which granduncle Alim used to swim and catch fish without letting his parents know. The water here was clean but deep. It served as a natural swimming pool for children. Granduncle Alim told Chung that when they got hungry during swimming, they would run to the Bag Gung temple nearby, sneak a round candy, and put it in their mouths. Not far from us in the village, there was a bridge, and by its side, another small, tall temple with a steeple stood next to Bag Gung temple. Granduncle Alim told Chung,
"This is called the Respect Words Pavilion. It is not a temple. People in the past used it to incinerate writing paper, representing their respect for writing."
It was close to noon. Granduncle Alim led Chung to the intersection of Erlu and Old Street for some Hakka flat noodles. Chung found it particularly delicious, perhaps because he was too hungry. Granduncle Alim said,
"Eat up, later we are going to Stone Weir to catch frogs."
Chung asked excitedly,
"Granduncle Alim, what is Stone Weir?"
Granduncle Alim decided to show Chung himself. He rolled up his trousers and led Chung down to the Longjing River, then chose a puddle in a small branch and built small dams at both ends. They took turns scooping up water using a bucket until the water level in the puddle became lower and lower, and the fish hiding in the water had nowhere to escape.
"This is what is called a stone weir,"
Granduncle Alim said with an exhausted but satisfied expression. After a while, they headed towards the Dada Haber, which was in Tiauti village. When they got there, Granduncle Alim said he remembered that his parents always devoted themselves to farming, and it was his job to transport the hard-earned harvests to the Dada Haber by bullock cart, then loaded them onto a raft. It was labor-consuming and time-costing work. But on the way back to Neipu, he would reward himself with a bowl of delicious rice noodles, and all his fatigue and tiredness would be relieved. Finally, Ah-chung said goodbye to the Liang by Bag Gung and Respect Words Pavilion in the Dada Haber, and his trip along the Longjing River came to the end. With the guidance and explanation of Granduncle Aline, Ah-chung felt like he had been personally on the scene of Granduncle Aline's childhood, accompanied by the Longjing River 70 years ago.
Wow! After reading the illustrated storybook introduction, don't you have a better understanding of the Longjing River? Now, let's reveal the answer to the question first. Question 1. Which of the following descriptions and stories about Longjing River mentioned in the video is incorrect? A. For Neipu Township and Zhutian Township, the Longjing River plays an important role in river irrigation and flood drainage. B. Houses designed with swallowtails indicate that a significant event has occurred in the family, and someone has been arrested and imprisoned. C. People used to burn written papers in the Respect Words Pavilion, symbolizing their ancestors' respect for the written word. D. People used to use the stoneware fishing technique to catch fish in the river. The answer is B. The illustrated storybook mentions that the house where Bajiao Ba Gung lives is very special, with the roof sides curving up like the prongs of a fork called a swallowtail, symbolizing that the family has produced many outstanding talents, which is very impressive. Therefore, it does not indicate that the family has had a significant event with someone being arrested and imprisoned, as mentioned in the option. After the video and the question, you should have a better understanding of the Longjing River, the Mother River, right? In case you were too focused on answering the question and missed other points, here are two important buildings mentioned in the video. One is the Neipu Mazu Temple, and the other is the Li's Ancestral Hall. First, the Neipu Mazu Temple. The Neipu Mazu Temple, also known as the Liudui Tianho Temple, has outer walls made of rammed earth, later plastered over. During the Daoguang period of the Qing dynasty, the temple underwent major renovations, replacing the wooden structure with stone, and it has been standing for over 140 years. The walls of the temple are now 68 centimeters thick. This temple enshrines the red-faced Mazu, with 3 Mazu statues in large, medium, and small sizes. The medium-sized Mazu statue was brought over during the Qianlong period, when Hakka immigrants crossed the sea to Taiwan, passing through Meiju Island. They received incense from the Mazu deity there and brought it with them as their guardian god, eventually enshrining it in Neipu. Second, the Li's Ancestral Hall. The Li's Ancestral Hall is located in Nichian Village, Neipu Township, formerly known as Hajiao. The Ancestral Hall was once destroyed by flooding, so the clan members raised funds to rebuild it in the 3rd year of the Showa era in Japan, 1928. The newly built Ancestral Hall combines Western and traditional architectural styles and is divided into 2 parts, the front hall and the rear hall. The remaining funds after reconstruction were used to build a Bagung temple diagonally opposite the left front of the Ancestral Hall, called the Bajiao Bagung by the locals. Congratulations on completing the first question. I believe everyone is deeply captivated by the story of this Mother River. Next, we will introduce a more in-depth cultural story, the Guardian of Villages, Bagung. In this video, through the perspectives of the main characters, Xiaozhu and Xiaotian, you will learn about the history of Bagung. The story begins with how the ancestor Bagung prayed to protect the residents, and later, the descendants built a pavilion to shelter him from the wind and rain, which eventually became the story of the Bagung Temple. It's very interesting as well. After watching the video, there will be questions for you to answer. Question 2. Which of the following statements about Bagung in the video is correct? A. Bagung protects the residents of the area, and the residents report both good and bad news to Bagung, praying for blessings. B. Fu De Zhengshen is also known as the Earth God or Bag Gung. In Hakka, Bag Gung refers to the younger brother of one's grandfather. C. The statue of Bag Gung has maintained the same form over the years, through evolution and transmission, without any changes. D. The Bag Gung temple has survived to this day, but only one type of temple architecture remains, while other forms have disappeared. Got the question? Remember to pay attention to the attention prompts in the video. Let's play the video now. 3, 2, 1.
The Guardian of Villages. Bag Gung. The Longjing River runs through Neipu and Zhutian townships in Pingtung County. Its headwater comes from Dal Mountain. Along with the river, several sacred buildings are strewn, and these buildings are the home of Bag Gung. It is Bag Gung's birthday today, and the residents have prepared plentiful offerings on the altar.
Xiaozhu, Xiaoting, are you ready to go?
In the morning, we picked flowers from the courtyard and made flower plates with Grandpa and Grandma. We would then go to the Bag Gung temple and dedicate the flower plates to Bag Gung. The breeze caressed us when we walked in the shade of trees along the river. The gurgling stream flowed to the horizon. It is the safest home for fish since the Longjing River is protected by Bag Gung here. Every February 2nd and August 15th of the lunar calendar, the village elders will get up earlier than usual. They are all delighted to prepare the offerings and never get tired of it. Xiaozhu and Xiaotian held flowers in their hands and said to Bag Gung,
Good morning, Bag Gung. Today is your birthday. We praise you and thank you for the blessing of peacefulness and prosperity of our family.
Grandpa said,
Bag Gung is always protecting our neighborhoods. Whenever there is a happy event in our family, we come to share it with Bag Gung. We also plead to Bag Gung for his help when we have troubles.
Looking at the inscriptions on the plaque of Bag Gung Temple, Xiaotian asked Grandma,
Why does it say Full Tak Temple instead of Bag Gung Temple?
Grandma said,
In Hakka, Bag Gung means the elder brother of Grandpa. It tells us that Bag Gung is like a very close elder in every family.
Gazing at Bag Gung, Xiaozhu asked,
Where is Bag Gung originally from?
Sitting on a stone chair in the Bag Gung Pavilion, Grandpa said slowly,
Our ancestors left their hometown and came to Taiwan by ship to seek a better life. Settling near water is convenient for getting water and makes it easier for farming. Whenever there were rainstorms or typhoons, the village could be severely damaged. That is why our ancestors learned to respect nature and hoped gods would protect the people who lived here. So, they placed a stone next to the stream to worship the god, and may the god bless everything safe and prosperous. The guardian god is whom we call Bag Gung.
I have observed that Bag Gung temples are not only at the riversides. We can also find Bag Gung temples at the entrance of our village, the edges of the fields, and even under the banyan tree near the gateway of our village.
As our ancestors had bumper grain harvests, they no longer suffered hunger and became affluent. The villagers were thankful to Bag Gung, who gave them the blessing on the crops, and they began to build pavilions for him. As time went by, those pavilions were remodeled and expanded from generation to generation. The symbols of Bag Gung varied from big-aged trees and stones to statues. Sometimes the Bag Gung was named to fit in environments. For example, the Bag Gung temple next to the Longjing River was called the Longjing Bag Gung. The first Bag Gung in Tiarizhuang was named the Kaizong, which means a pioneer, Bag Gung.
On the way home, Grandma introduced the Bag Gung temples we passed by. She said,
Today, 3 types of Bag Gung temple exteriors have been preserved. They are the hexagonal-shaped buildings, the temple-style buildings, and the very rare Hua Tai Bag Gun.
Later, Grandma stopped at a tilted tower-shaped building and said,
In Hakka areas, people respect scripted paper and do not throw it easily. They incinerate the scripted paper in specific places called the Respect Words Pavilion.
Today, I have a full new view of Bad Gung. I can't wait to share it with my friends and bring them to Bad Gung,
said Zhutian.
Wow! After reading the illustrated storybook, do you feel like you understand the culture of Bad Gung better? Without further ado, let's reveal the answer to the questions. Question 2. Which of the following statements about Bad Gung in the video is correct? A. Bad Gung protects the residents of the area, and the residents report both good and bad news to Bad Gung, praying for blessings. B. Fu De Zheng Shen is also known as the Earth God or Bad Gung. In Hakka, Bad Gung refers to the younger brother of one's grandfather. C. The statue of Bad Gung has maintained the same form over the years, through evolution and transmission, without any changes. D. The Bad Gung temple has survived to this day, but only one type of temple architecture remains, while other forms have disappeared. This question is also very simple. The answer is A. The video mentions that Fu De Zheng Shen is indeed the Earth God, also known as Bad Gung, and in Hakka, Bad Gung refers to the older brother of one's grandfather, not the younger brother. Additionally, the statue of Bad Gung has undergone many changes over the years through generations of transmission, taking various forms such as old trees, stones, stone tablets, and statues. Finally, the Bad Gung temple has survived to this day, preserving three main forms: hexagonal architecture, temple-style architecture, and the relatively rare Hua Tai-style Bad Gung. Great! Let's give ourselves a big applause. After answering the question, let me share two small pieces of knowledge about Bad Gung that you can share with others later. First, the Bad Gung altar and Bad Gung temple. In the previous illustrated storybook and question options, it was mentioned that there are currently 3 forms of Bad Gung temple. However, in the early days, the places for worshipping Bad Gung were quite simple, consisting of a sacrificial platform made of earth, known as the Bad Gung altar. Over time, these altars were rebuilt multiple times, eventually evolving into the temple-style buildings we see today, and were renamed Bad Gung Temple. Second, the birthday celebration of Bad Gung. In the illustrated storybook, it is mentioned that Bad Gung's birthday celebration occurs twice a year, on the 2nd day of the 2nd lunar month and the 15th day of the 8th lunar month. In an agricultural society, people primarily relied on crop cultivation for their livelihood. However, relying solely on human effort could not guarantee a good harvest, and the impact of natural disasters could not be ignored. Therefore, the ancestors would pray to Bad Gung for blessings for the crops to grow smoothly. At the beginning of spring each year, when people would hold a ceremony to pray for a bountiful harvest and peace, known as Praying in Spring or Pray for Blessings, which is conducted on the 2nd day of the 2nd lunar month. During the autumn and winter harvest times, they hold a festival called Autumn Report, or Gratefulness for the Blessings to thank Bad Gung for a year of protection. These 2 important festivals have continued to this day, becoming part of traditional customs. Congratulations on completing the second question. In addition to the Bad Gung Temple, there are many cultural attractions by the Longjing River. Next, let's explore Respecting the Pages of Life, the Respect Words Pavilion. In this video, we will follow the perspective of the main characters, Xiaoping and Xiaowan, along with Grandpa's explanation, to understand the origin of the Respect Words Pavilion, the custom of burning character paper, and the symbolic meaning of showing respect to Changji, the creator of Chinese characters and the god of literature, Wen Chang Emperor. After watching the video, there will be questions for you to answer as well. Question 3. The illustrated storybook mentions the description of the Respect Words Pavilion by the Longjing Stream. Which of the following is correct? A. The 5 Wenchang Dijun are composed of 5 gods related to agriculture, and it is said that these 5 gods all have the divine power to ensure bountiful harvests. B. The Respect Words Pavilion usually appears at the foot of the mountain, where ancient people would choose lucky times to burn paper, conveying their respect for words to the gods. C. The custom of burning character paper originates from the ancients' respect for paper, and it also expressed reverence for Changji and Wenchang Emperor. D. The Respect Words Pavilion is mostly square or hexagonal in shape, usually with 4 levels, each with different designs and functions. Got the question? Remember to pay attention to the attention prompts in the video. Let's play the video now. 3, 2, 1.
Respecting the pages of life, the Respect Words Pavilions. The Longjing River flows through every small village, quietly moistening every green field. Standing on the riverside, the Respect Words Pavilion is incinerating scripted paper. Subtle smoke and mist swirl around the Respect Words Pavilion, finally gone with the wind, spreading the spirits of Hakka's hard-working though elegant tradition. The sacred mist surrounding the Respect Words Pavilion will swirl from generation to generation. One Sunday, Grandpa took a bundle of scripted paper with his grandchildren, Xiaoping and Xiaoan, and headed to the riverside of the Longjing River. By the river stood a 3-story building with a hexagonal-shaped pavilion, and people were incinerating scripted paper there.
Grandpa, what does it mean, cherish words written on it?
Xiaoan asked innocently and curiously as she looked at a plaque.
Grandpa, you said we are taking paper to the Respect Words Pavilion, but why we are sending the paper to the stove?
Xiaoping asked confusingly.
This is the Respect Words Pavilion, also known as the Tower of Words.
Grandpa looked at the gurgling flow of the Longjing River and said slowly,
We Hakka people constantly urge ourselves to work hard in farming and never neglect the importance of studying. For Hakka people, studying is imperative, and it is something that will bring glory to our family. They encourage themselves and their descendants to be diligent in studying and passing on the family tradition of literature and philosophy.
Grandpa continued.
The custom of burning scripted paper was a ritual that came from the respective words which were signs of knowledge in ancient times. Every spring and autumn, the Hakka people would choose a day to hold a ceremony and burn the out-of-date scripted paper in the Respect Words Pavilion. People showed their respect to Samjie, the maker of Chinese characters, and Wenchang Dijun, the god in charge of the examinations.
Grandpa, sometimes I see word furnace inscribed on the Respect Words Pavilions. What makes them different? Grandpa, are there worshipped gods inside the pavilion?
Xiaoping and Xiaoan asked Grandpa eagerly.
Ha 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 ha. Well. Grandpa will tell you from the beginning. The Respect Words Pavilions in the Hakka village have many different names, such as Xingji Ting, Jingsing Ting, One by Ting, One by Gu, Ziji Ting, Dunshui Ting, or Zilu. They can all be grouped into the Respect Words Pavilions. They serve not only for incinerating scripted paper, but also play an important role in driving out devils. The Respect Words Pavilions also worship the sage Samjie, the great sage Confucius, Wenchang Dijun, the 5 Wenchang Dijun, Hanyu, Guanyin, Guanxing Dijun, etc.
Grandpa elaborated.
Grandpa, 5 Wenchang Dijun sound familiar to me. Can you tell us more about them?
Xiaoan asked.
According to folklore religion, these 5 gods are guardians of students and scholars. That's why they are especially worshipped by those who need to take examinations. They are collectively called the 5 Wenchang.
Xiaoping said loudly.
I must come to the Respect Words Pavilion more often to pay respect so that I can have good luck in exams and get better grades.
Xiaoan reminded Xiaoping.
God helps those who help themselves.
The two siblings were so happy and cheerful, even sparrows flew around happily too. Grandpa smiled and ate.
Do you know where the Respect Words Pavilions usually are?
By the Longjing River. And it's near the Bad Gung Temple.
The two siblings answered almost at the same time.
You are right. Although some Respect Words Pavilions adjoin the Bad Gung Temple or other temples, most of them are built next to streams, and the reason is, long time ago, people would choose an auspicious day to worship gods before they incinerated the scripted paper, and the ashes left would be released into the water. It was known as a ritual to convey respect to gods, and that's why you see many Respect Words Pavilions stand by canals and streams.
Explained Grandpa. Xiaoping suddenly looked up at the Respect Words Pavilion and said,
The Respect Words Pavilion is so tall and has many levels. I wonder how high it is. And why do some Respect Words Pavilions seem to have a different appearance?
Xiaowan asked curiously.
Most Respect Words Pavilions have 3 levels with a square or hexagonal-shaped exterior. The first story is the base of the pavilion with a collection area for ashes. The second story is a furnace in which the scripted paper will be burnt. And the third story is a shrine for worshiping gods.
Grandpa said.
Now I know a Respect Words Pavilion has 3 levels, and each level has its arrangement.
Xiaoping gave a thumbs up and praised. Xiaowan also said,
Wow! It's brilliant! Grandpa, the Respect Words Pavilions are a cultural legacy. Through them, we can see and learn from the wisdom of our ancestors, so we must preserve and carry forward the spirit of the Respect Words Pavilions. Yes. We have to work hard to protect the Respect Words Pavilion and not let it disappear.
Xiaoping and Xiaowan talked excitingly. Grandpa couldn't hide the gratification on his face while listening.
Wow! After watching the illustrated storybook, do you have a better understanding of the culture of the Respect Words Pavilion? Without further ado, let's announce the answers to the questions. Question 3. The illustrated storybook mentions the description of the Respect Words Pavilion by the Longjing stream. Which of the following is correct? A. The 5 Wenchang Dijun are composed of 5 gods related to agriculture, and it is said that these 5 gods all have the divine power to ensure bountiful harvests. B. The Respect Words Pavilion usually appears at the foot of the mountain, where ancient people would choose lucky times to burn paper, conveying their respect for words to the gods. C. The custom of burning character paper originates from the ancients' respect for paper, and it also expressed reverence for Changji and Wenchang Emperor. D. The Respect Words Pavilion is mostly square or hexagonal in shape, usually with 4 levels, each with different designs and functions. This question is a bit challenging. The answer is C. The 5 Wenchang Dijun are worshipped as gods related to scholarly success, with each deity believed to have the power to protect academic pursuits. The Respect Words Pavilion is usually found by streams because ancient people would choose an auspicious time to perform rituals and burn character paper, allowing the ashes to flow with the water and convey their respect for written words to the gods. Lastly, the Respect Words Pavilion is mostly square or hexagonal in shape, typically with 3 levels, each with different designs and functions. Wow! I wonder if your understanding of the Respect Words Pavilion has deepened after answering the questions. Since the video mentioned that several Respect Words Pavilions are located by Longjing River, here are 4 different styles of Respect Words Pavilions for you. The Respect Words Pavilion by the Longjing River. First, the Zilu of the Fukchuan Hall in Dongxi Village, Neipu Township. This Zilu has a grayish-white body with a rounded shape. The top of the furnace resembles a pen tip, and the overall appearance looks like a pen. The top features a circular smoke vent. Second, the Respect Words Pavilion at the Neipu Mazu Temple, Neitian Village, Neipu Township. This Respect Word Pavilion is a 3-layer hexagonal tower made of red bricks. The body of the tower gradually narrows from bottom to top, and the top is decorated with shallow relief carvings of gourds and lucky symbols. Third, the Respect Words Pavilion at the Tiaudi Village, Zhutian Township. This 3-layer hexagonal feng shui pagoda is decorated with gourds and lucky symbols at the top. The edges of the roof are adorned with clay scroll-shaped decorations, and the 3rd layer is dedicated to the worship of Guanyin. Fourth, the Respect Words Pavilion at Erlin Village, Zhutian Township. This is a typical hexagonal fair-faced brick structure. The bottom layer serves as the base, the middle layer is used for burning paper, and the upper layer is primarily for smoke discharge, extending up to the pavilion roof. Great job! Congratulations on completing all the quiz questions. Give yourself a pat on the back. I believe we are all deeply fascinated by the cultural stories along Longjing River. Now we are about to embark on a more challenging and interesting phase. This question requires a short answer. It will test you on the knowledge you've learned from the video. Let's take on the challenge together. Short answer question. If you take your foreign friends to visit Longjing River mentioned in the video, how will you introduce Longjing River, Gung, or the Respect Words Pavilion to them? Does this question seem a bit challenging? No worries, I've got a list of words you might use to prepare an answer. You can pause the video and think about how to use these words. If you already have an answer, read it out or write it down. Remember, practice makes perfect. Did you try to answer the question? If the answer is yes, that's great. If not, that's okay. Let me show you my answer. I want you to read it out with me. Longjing River flows through Zhutian and Neipu townships, providing ample water resources for the Hakka community. The early settlers used the stone weir method to catch fish in the river. Along the riverbank, there are many Respect Words pavilions for burning character paper as a sign of respect for characters, Changji and Wenchang Dijun. There are also Gung temples, Fuda temples, where residents pray for protection and report both good and bad events. Congratulations on completing all the questions. Have you learned a lot at the end of this course? I also want to share a piece of good news with you. At the end of the video, there's a quiz for you to do so that you can review what you've learned from the video. So don't forget to do the quiz after watching the video. Enjoy studying. Bye.